Okay, I'm going to start. I'm starting here. It's 1:47. I'm about 12 or 13 minutes early, and I do understand that. That way, I can run us up to around 3 o'clock and get us to the point where we want to be. And of course, we're scheduled to go till 3:15. But I wanted to start early today, so you can always look at the video on the front end, and you'll still have the same amount of time. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And again, as I mentioned, you'll want to start at the front end of this, and that way you'll be able to be it. But it's about 1:47, as you can see from my clock down here. I'll pop it up for you for a sec. And now it's 1:48, and so I'll stop around I think around 3 o'clock, maybe a little earlier than that. And as usual, you'll see a pattern high that we're working on each week. I go through some of the problems. I go through a little bit of a web safari, and then I go through. For Wednesdays, I give you some guest speakers in the form of Ted. But I'm starting a little bit early, but always you can scroll back in the recording, so you're not really going to miss anything. But I want to make sure that we, are on top of where things are in the course. So I'm going to kind of start with that, and let's see who else I've got who's joining me. Houston, glad to see you there. You're a MIS warrior, and you as well, warrior and MIS. But we're going to continue on now, and I want to just do some kind of housekeeping, if I will. This week you have. Let's pop up here for a minute. This is week 9. And we'll scroll up to the syllabus section that lists all the assignments. Okay, and you can see a pretty familiar pattern here. This is for the Friday the 27th. You have hands-on MIS project number 8. Okay, and then the interactive session number 5, and then the exam or the quiz over loud. And so that's Friday. Now I'll click on this for a minute and we'll talk about it. There are 3 bullet points, and this is over on page 375, 9/11. So I'm going to pop over there for a minute. We'll talk about it. Okay. There's the assignments that are due for the week. And this is 9/11. So it's at the bottom of page 375. There are 3 bullet points there, and I want you to respond to them. And they talk about evaluating supply chain management services. Okay, so again, one of the things I've kept mentioning to everybody is references. I even went into Microsoft Word and showed everybody how to use even if you go out and get a URL, an electronic reference, how you can use the tool in Microsoft Word to create a perfectly formatted reference. It's just like a drop-down menu, and you just put in the information. So I want to see some references. Now, if you say, well, let me show you one other thing that's over here. This is, there's some academic apps. Here's the A to Z data list, and this is the online library that you can use, okay? And again, you can go there and search a topic out, and then the references are there for you. And usually, if you take a look at the article, you'll see it, and sometimes it's in PDF or HTML format, and you'll have a perfectly cited article. So I want to see at least 1 or 2 citations, not just the textbook, okay? And that I consider a quality response. So I want you to respond to them. And again, they talk about supply chain management services, and as you can investigate the websites of 2 companies, UPS Logistics and Schneider Logistics, and to see how these service companies' services can be used for supply chain management. Okay, so you're going to be comparing UPS Logistics versus Schneider Logistics, and then you address those 3 questions there. This is 9/11. What supply chain processes can they support? How can customers use the web services of each company? And then that 3rd one. So that's the that's the hands-on project there at 375, 9, 11. Now, in addition to that, and that's due Friday, there's an interactive session that's due, and that's pages 357 to 358, and we'll take a look at that for just a second. And so if you come in late, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. You can double back. I'm recording this. I hope. I pray. Yes, I am. Good. And there on page 357, it's a case involving Scott's Miracle-Gro. This is a company that makes products for plants. And you want to go over there on page 375, and it goes all the way over to 357 to 358. And at the bottom of 358, there are the 4, questions that they want you to answer about that case study. So I'll be looking for that as well. And again, looking for some references and some, make sure to see that you respond to each one of these. Okay, so that's a cue. And then finally, I'm going through the assignments that you have. October 27th, Loudon, Chapter 9. I can't remember how many items. It's 40 items, 40 points, 20 items, 1 attempt. Okay, so it's due then. Well, let's pop back over to the modules, and let's take a look at this. And here in Chapter 9, we're looking at enterprise resource planning. Okay, and the text does a pretty decent job of giving us some visual cues. And again, it's over in Chapter 9. Okay, so I'm park back over there. The whole idea, of ERP, enterprise resource planning, or enterprise resource computing, but they're using the term planning, is to get all of the information systems, the key information systems, pulled together, as a way to build, to do some company planning, and to achieve 2 goals. And the chapter talks about that right in the title of the chapter. Title page 346. They talk about 2 things. Operational excellence and customer intimacy. And one of them is the internal, obviously, the operational excellence, and the other is customer intimacy, and that is an external kind of piece. So the system designed to deal with each of them. Now, as you would guess, I have resources that I can pull from the publisher, and I want to pull this one up here and talk about it for just a little bit of time. This shows you the ERP, and how it pulls together the whole series, of key information systems. All right. And so when we talk about management of information systems, we're talking about how do I take different information systems, manage them, that is, put them together, resource them, etc. And so you see we have really, it's quite intuitive if you take the top 3, and you've got supply chain management, customer relation management, and those are certainly deal with marketing, And then as you go on around that, and I'm going clockwise, HRM, HR, finance, and then manufacturing resource planning. Those are internal kinds of things. And again, that's talking about the sense of building operational excellence and customer intimacy. And so you can see, if you look at page 347, that is indeed the case. And then, as usual, over on page 349, they give you the little schematic, and this is figure 9.1. We'll take a look at it. All right. And no, let's see, I'll find this in just a second. Here we are. Again, every chapter in this textbook opens with this information flow chart or flow chart, and how the tasks that we have ahead of us, and how those are achieved: management, organization, and technology, or people. I call it peopleware, software, hardware. But nonetheless, the whole idea is to reduce costs to support growth, but to do it by getting siloed legacy systems, handling them, outdated business processes, getting them updated, getting the business operating more efficiently, and using technology to do that and feeding it into the information system. Now, I like this one schematic that the authors use, and this one again, I'll go back to it, because it shows you how these things all kind of interact, I think, in a more intuitive way. At the middle of it is the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning System. And what it does is it draws upon all those other tools, those other subsystems to come up with a plan for the enterprise. And let me walk you through it like a clock. We're going to go clockwise. Supply chain management. All right, who will be our order fulfillment? Will it be us? Do we have or will it be a vendor? Okay. Customer relationship management. How are the ways that we interact with our customers? How are the ways that we capture that data? Okay. And how is it that we communicate with our customers to build that sense of intimacy that they talk about? And so there's got to be that piece. Now, on the supply chain management, it's the same story there. We have to interface with our supply chain folks as closely as we do our customers, because in a sense, the supply chain people are our customers. They're what we would call an upstream. And I'll pop out here. I want to say hi, Libby. Glad to have you aboard. Now, close this down for just a second. And if we take a look over, and I'm just kind of walking through the text a little bit didactic, you'll see at the bottom of page 350, they show you how these systems work. And you'll see at the middle of it is a centralized database. So now if you've had Management 4403, or you're going through BISS 4403, or you're going through it, now the bells should start going off in your head, because this is the repository. And remember, I talked about that notion of a data warehouse, okay? And how we use a data warehouse, we go in and get the data that we need. Now, this centralized database is that warehouse where we go get the information we need for each of those components of the enterprise system, okay? And you could see examples of the facts data, or the facts tables that we might have. You remember we've talked about dimensions, i.e. attributes, versus facts tables. Well, I'm looking up here, finance and accounting. I'm looking at cash on hand, accounts receivable, customer credit, and revenue. Those are all going to be facts. That's stuff I can count, stuff I can measure, okay? And I'm going to be able to get that out of a database that stores all that financial information. So we're trying to pull this all together. Now, in truth, this stuff gets all cobbled together, okay? Because there really isn't, there's really not one monolithic product you can buy that will do everything for you that you want done. It often becomes a question of tailoring. And so this is more like a goal, okay, than anything else. Now, over in 351, they give us a definition of enterprise software, okay, and predefined business processes reflect best practices, okay. Now those are predefined business processes that feed into the KPI, that is the key performance indicators. So you have that. So you have the data around those processes, and those processes can be everything from receiving inbound inventory, to how you handle that inventory, to shipping stuff out, to taking an inbound a call from a customer, making an outbound call, and you start to have this. For this to make sense, you just have to see it as a series of flows, okay, where you're mixing stuff together to get, you know, like you're taking some, you know, you're taking some milk and some chocolate to make a, you know, chocolate and ice cream to make a chocolate shake, you know, or you take a hamburger, some buns, you know, some lettuce, some tomato, you make a sandwich. You have to see it like that. Otherwise, things become very siloed. Okay. Now, this is a this chapter really does take us into the realms of some of the larger companies that are out there, okay, just simply because smaller companies do this, but on more of an ad hoc basis than anything. Now, they talk there in the chapter, the authors talk about the supply chain. And I want you to take a look at figure 3.2, and I'm going to find it over here so I can pop it up here. I'm finding figure 3.2, if I've got it here, 9.4, maybe this, I think this is it. Yes, it is. Okay. Now, if you look at the diagram, and again, this is over on page 354 if you're following your book, or you can look on here and see, you really have three pieces here, okay? You have what we call the upstream, okay? And they're dealing, this is Nike. And then you really, and then I would say you have this intermediary, and that's your company, okay? And then you have the downstream. So you could say upstream, and then Nike is like kind of a holding pond or a lake or something, and then stuff goes downstream. And when you understand supply chain management in that sense, then you start to understand all the stuff that can go wrong and all the things that have to go right for everything to flow together. Now, that being said, let's say you go on the website at Nike to buy a pair of sneakers, okay, buy a pair of shoes. All right, you order the shoes, okay? And what's going to happen at this point is, all right, there's going to be an entry in the inventory, okay? There's going to be an entry in the finance piece, what you paid for it, okay? Then you're going to have an order piece that's going to notify you of the order. And then you have these contract suppliers, these people who make the shoes for Nike. Nike has people who make shoes for them according to the specs and according to Nike's method for Nike's branding, excuse me. And so these contractors, let me stop for a minute and talk about this because it's something you may not get here. Most contractors or suppliers of major firms have to go through what we call a certification process. And that is so that Nike, for example, knows that the people who make the soles of their shoes, or the people who make the tops of the shoes, or who supply the shoestrings, or who provide the colors, or who provide the little Nike check mark thing, any of that, okay? And the people who assemble it and send it into Nike, or send it through Nike to a distributor, okay, that has to be all certified. And then once they're certified, then they're monitored. Why? Because they have Nike's lives in their hands, okay? Now, so you can see then as you see, and notice that on the upstream, okay, you've got some interesting flows. You got those three little what they call tier 3 suppliers. And these are all what we would say are typically component suppliers. And then the tier 2 suppliers are the people who typically would assemble everything, okay? And the tier 3 suppliers are the folks who have inventory, okay? And inventory in one of three places, either outbound to the customer, on hand based on previous demand, okay, and then incoming stuff. So they've got stuff on the way, stuff sitting in their warehouse, if you will, and stuff going out their warehouse. Okay, that's why you see those arrows showing movement of goods and movement of information and goods and services on opposite direction. Because if Nike sells something to the customer, all the way over to the right at the end of the downstream, and the customer doesn't like it, or there's something wrong, what happens? Well, it flows right back up, okay, into Nike, who makes a refund and who has to then and if they have too many of these variances occur, too many things return, then they have to start to work their way back upstream, okay? So this whole idea is to use information technology to allow us to do this. okay, so that we have that flow of information. Now, when we talk about the customer intimacy piece, okay, there's really there's two parts. One is what we would say is what I call the virtual, okay, where your shoes have been ordered, they're in Dallas, they're on the way, and you go, oh, I'm going to get my Nikes, and you get another email and say your shoes will be there by 6 o'clock tonight. What's happening when you order that, or you order something from Amazon and they're building an intimacy with you, okay? Now, if they're really good, which they are, some on a random basis, everybody who answers one of those kinds of emails about Amazon will say, tell us about the experience you had with our packaging. And a lot of people, and out of every 1,000 people who respond to that type of thing, okay, they'll get a phone call and people will talk to them. Now, my wife and I made a purchase of a vehicle, and let me tell you what the customer intimacy was of that. We received all the surveys about the dealer, the surveys about the salesperson, the survey about the service people who got the vehicle ready. We got a survey about the vehicle itself. Then a month later, we got a phone call, and that was a phone interview, okay? And they wanted to know. And then now, about every 6 weeks or so, we get a survey. How's it going? Now, one of the other interesting things was on my Facebook page, suddenly I'm getting little pop-up. I'm getting little pass-through stuff from that automobile company, wanting to know, have you planned a trip? Have you taken an adventure? If you have, would you upload some photos and a link to their Facebook page? Same thing with Twitter, okay? So they're building, I'm talking with them, and they're having that type of relationship. Now, at the same time, there's another piece that under all of this, okay? And that is, since I'm a customer, not only are they talking to me, but they're trying to engage in discussion with the vehicle. You say, what in the world are you talking about? Well, my vehicle tells me it's so many thousand miles before the first checkup. It's so many, and about once a week, we'll get a little pop-up when we start the car that says, blah, blah, blah. And the first time it happened, it alarmed my wife. We called it in. They said, don't worry about it. It's just a way that we keep reminding you to service your vehicle so you'll keep it in good shape and when it has to be done. And I said, can I turn it off? And he said, yes, you can, but then you may affect the warranty. So we prefer to just give you a nice short little, hey, don't forget 8,000 miles or 9,000 or 7. And the whole idea is what? To get us to take that, it's nagware, to put it. I told my wife, what we're having here is nagware. They're going to nag us to make sure we do. Now, I had a similar back in the early 80s. I bought a Honda Civic, and that Civic had right above the horn, it had three little squares, and there were three little bars. And when the car was serviced, they'd all be green. And then they'd start to turn yellow, and then they'd go red. And when it was red, it was time, hey, dummy, take me in and get me serviced. You say, well, does it work? Yes. Okay. And that's a pretty primitive system, but it worked. I had that car, and I got nearly 400,000 miles out of it. I finally got rid of it for a simple reason. They quit making the Freon, the type of air conditioner. It was an environmental thing. And when I took it to the dealer, he said, it'll cost you more. He said, you might as well buy a new car because it'll cost you more to go find an old-fashioned air conditioner, okay, and use it than it would to just buy a new one. But I got my money's worth out of that vehicle. So this whole idea is to use these systems, and you're going to see more and more of this. And I would say if I had been editing on this book, I would have said the customer and then any other objects, okay, that are there. Now, if there are any of you who are Fitbit people, My wife is a Fitbit freak. She has become a Fitbit nutcase, meaning she has that thing on all the time. She watches it to see she has her goal for the number of steps every day. And maybe you do the same thing. And then the other day I was at the store and I saw Fitbit watches with all kinds of stuff. Okay. So that intimacy, as we see, we're going to see more and more that as we buy things, we're going to see that encapsulated and wrapped in too. So that whole idea of the supply chain and trying to establish two things, okay, customer intimacy and operational excellence, and especially if it is not only just the internal of the company. Really, good companies say this: if they make stuff, once it's out the door, that doesn't mean we're finished with it. Once it's out the door, that means our work intensifies, because now it's out there in the world being used, and we want to make sure that it works and that it works properly. So there's a lot of meat there in terms of that. Now, over on page 356, they talk about the bullwhip effect. Now, and there's a nice discussion of that. And what that means is that there are times if people, if we over order, okay, we can create what we call bullwhip effect, which means if we over order, it works its way back up the supply chain, where you have people overproducing, making too much, okay? And you can do that, and that means you got all that excess capacity sitting on your floor, or you've got it out, and got it out in shipments and so forth. And so you want to take a look at that, and that's why they talk about this notion of demand planning. Now, back in the day, Nike would sit down and go, well, we sold, 1 million pairs of this shoe, and we think we'll sell 1,200,000. And that was their plan. Today, with things like just-in-time inventory, okay, we're moving things to as close to where we have a bare amount of stock, but we are really just taking orders. With the cloud and with the internet, we're taking orders on the spot, okay? And then stuff's being put together and shipped to us. And that's that whole idea of what we call just-in-time inventory. So the chapter is starting to talk about that. And of course, that's one of the reasons that I think that the case over here, this interactive session on Miracle Grow, okay, is really, really, really important for you to see, because if you underproduce, you leave money on the table. If you overproduce, you leave money on the table. You have too much stuff sitting around, you have excess inventory. You're going to have to get rid of it. If you have demand and you don't have enough inventory, that's really bad, because you upset people, and you've lost the sales and you've lost the profits. So that's I think the one thing that I think of everything in this chapter, in chapter 9, in terms of enterprise resource planning, I think understanding the supply chain is the most important. And so I would, as you probably heard me say before, I think if you really want to get the most out of business school, you need to say, okay, I'm like somebody who's over here in art, learning art, or I'm learning music. I go in and I look I go into Arby's and I say, who do they sell to? Okay, how do they handle their supply chain? How does a store, not too much bigger than the BBC lab here, maybe twice its size, pump through $5, $6, $8 million a store? How do they do that? How do they get all that stuff in and out? How do they handle all that? How do they get the big trucks in there and doesn't jam up the driveway where people would say, oh, I can't stop there, it's going to be too hard to get in and get served? How does that all work itself out? It's a great challenge. And the challenges are getting more intense, not less intense, for a very simple reason. So much stuff is being sold online and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, that it puts us into a real spot. Because when you and I go into, if you go, let's say I'm going to talk about sneakers because we're talking about Nike, okay? Now I have a couple of brands I really like, okay? I'm certain that you do too. And, you know, if you're an average size person, you can probably go into the mall or go into one of these, or go to the mall or go to a sporting goods store, somewhere like that, and find the size you need. If you're like me, you got to order it online, okay? If you do, then you're talking about a lag between the point in time you paid for it, okay, and the time you get it. Now, I've found the people that I deal with usually will not bill me until the stuff is shipped. My wife said, "This is amazing. How do they?" I said, "That's because they have an enterprise resource planning system, that the minute the stuff is shipped, okay, then I'm billed." That doesn't happen by accident. The whole idea is that I'm working that, it's coming downstream now, okay, but I have an upstream, and that is into my corporate coffers, because I've sold, I've got a sale, okay. So that's very important. You know, if you buy much stuff from Amazon, or if you've ever have, you'll get an email from them asking you to talk about your packaging and your delivery. Why? Because that's part of that downstream experience. And so I really can't stress that enough. This understanding the supply chain and its dynamics is absolutely critical. And as companies get bigger and bigger, managing them becomes a greater and greater task. Now, the authors talk about the challenges of global supply chains, which are really, really tough. And as I told the management science students this morning, we were looking at queuing theory. There's a whole field of study out there called logistics that does nothing except look at, how do I get stuff from one place to the other? That's one big piece of that course, or that field. And the second is, how do all of my physical facilities, okay, how do they reflect my business strategy? Okay. Let's take OBU, for example. We want freshmen to have the BISS experience. So they come and they stay in dorms. They have a welcome week. They do the walk. All those traditions, okay, are things that build bonding with the institution, i.e. with the brand, and get you into the swing of things, okay? So if you look at the bottom of page 360, okay, you're going to see another thing here that's interesting. This is what we call push versus pull based demands, okay? And what we're seeing is because of the internet, okay, people are going more and more online and buying what they want and what they need. Yeah, I'm a big person, okay? And so for me to go over to a store and find stuff that fits, especially shoes, it's not happening. So I have found a site that sells shoes for people of my size, okay, especially wide shoes. They're nice, they fit, they cost a little bit extra, but I'm okay with that. If I want a good variety of things, I go online for shirts, pants, any of that stuff, okay? And that's changed everything. So what I'm doing now, and what most people do, is the bottom, and that is a pull-based model where I order something and it's assembled and or it's procured, okay? Now, information systems are intended to help us do this, okay? They help us communicate this, and page 361 shows you, it looks like a bunch of spaghetti. It really does show you what goes on in terms of a cloud based or internet driven supply chain. And things are coming more and more to that. Okay. I don't know how many malls. I'm going to diminish this for just a second. And I'm going to go out here and let's see how many malls closed in the United States. I'm just going to check to see. The number of malls that closed in U.S. in 2016. Let's see how many malls closed. Okay. Here's from magazine, a third. They said this is back from 2016. A third of all shopping malls will be closing. Okay. And there's some articles here that would be worth, if you work in marketing or you're interested in retail, you want to look at this trend. Why is it? It's simple. I can order stuff from the internet at home. I don't have to go out and traipse around and shop and look for all that stuff. Now, what's happened is these stores especially have really hurt themselves by narrowing down their inventory. So what do you mean? If you go to most malls today, especially places that sell clothing, you will find that they sell to a narrow band of customer, an average, so-called average-sized person. Why? Because that's where the greatest number of people is. But they miss everybody else. And after a while, the people who would wear the stuff that they've got hanging over here at Quail Springs Mall or at Penn Square Mall, the stuff hanging on the shelves, people go, why would I drive over there and go through all that hassle when I can order it online? Okay. In my industry, higher education, it never ceases to amaze me that I have a lot of colleagues who are surprised that Oklahoma has a way for any kid to go to school online and get their high school diploma. That there are universities, some of the largest universities in the world are really online. They're online. Okay. There's one that I saw some ads on the TV. It's called Independence University, I thought, who are these people? I've never even heard of them. And they go through this whole thing of, well, you won't have to drive, you don't have to live in the dorm or drive there. You don't have to pay for all that stuff and gas, and you don't have to, walk at half a mile to class in the inclement weather and on. And I'm sitting there thinking, whoa, okay. And by the time they're finished, it's, this person's sitting in their living room taking their class. Now, I know it's not the same as being in a classroom. I understand that. But if you're a 25 or 30 or 35 or 45-year-old person who needs their degree, you don't care. If it's accredited and it has some pretty good weight, you're probably going to take them up on the offer for the simple reason it's a pull kind of situation. One of the interesting things is that most schools, and I've taught online since the early 90s, okay, so I've been through the whole evolution of that process. But one of the things that's interesting is if you go to most schools that have online programs, there's about a 300-mile circumference where they draw students. Beyond that, they don't draw them. There are some exceptions. The biggest exception right now is Liberty University, okay, that they have, I think they have like online, like 50 or 60,000 students. They got, I think, 10 or 15, maybe 20,000 at their residential in Lynchburg. And they pull students all primarily from the East Coast, okay? And their online programs are huge. There's University of Phoenix, there are other universities. But again, the point is, these are pull demand kinds of situations, okay? Now, that being said, if you take a look over at in that emerging internet-driven supply chain, listen, I would say this to any of you who are out there who are concerned about finding work. Listen, I really, 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 really encourage you to go and find out about the logistics companies that are out there, okay? Learn about them, find out about them, because the more that online grows, the more that logistics will grow, okay? I was honored to work on a task force back in the late 90s, early 2000s, before my wife and I moved to Arizona and took a job out there to work for a task. We worked on a regional planning commission for the city of St. Louis, or the St. Louis metropolitan area. And they had this enormous number of what you would call there were warehouses and manufacturing facilities, just kind of in the north part of town. And they were just sitting here, these buildings. Well, pretty soon people started creating some lofts and that type of housing, but then they started getting filled up with supply chain firms, companies that do the software and do that piece, companies that do the physical delivery, and St. Louis is a hub for that kind of delivery. Oklahoma City is an important hub because we're in the middle of the country. So I would encourage you, go out there and find out about logistics companies, okay? And you may find there's some great opportunities for employment out there, because you got to get the stuff to the customer. It doesn't matter how well you design your website. It doesn't matter how good the product is. If you don't get it to the customer, okay, then all is lost. And so I would encourage you to take a look at that. There on page 363, okay, and that's figure 9.6, they show you the CRM circle, okay? And I want to pop this up here. I'm being a little more didactic than I usually am, and I want to apologize for that for a very simple reason. This is important stuff. This is, in my mind, this is where a lot of this has some, you can connect the dots, if you will. And let me stop for a minute also, because, you know, I started early, everybody. So you'll want to scroll back, you know, once the video is created, to see the start. I want to see all is with me. Get over here. And there's, let's see, Houston, Christian, West, Libby, Miranda, glad to see you, Robert, Samuel, Shane, and Yamilis Sanchez. And you are indeed MIS warriors, okay? Now, when we talk about CRM and CRM technologies, we're really talking about these three big pieces: sales, service, and marketing, okay? The marketing is the awareness building, okay? The sales is a whole different matter. Now, I learned this because I worked for 3 years for a university. It's called North Central University, that is a privately owned business, but it's accredited like OBU is, really by the same accreditor, if I'm not mistaken, and the business school, same accreditor, this school, but that was a private business. And they understood quite well the difference between marketing and sales. And they did web marketing. They were doing web marketing long before people were doing it, and they grew tremendously. And then the place was sold by the owner. But I saw how they moved, how they had one team that did the marketing piece and another team that was fantastic with the sales piece. Those take certain technologies as well as certain people, and there you would have a CRM database, okay, that lets you draw on that, because these people have to know who might have responded. These folks over here have to start to do the analytics on who responded. And if you're taking the management science course with me, okay, or you've taken it, and we go through that process where I show you how we use some data about we do a cluster analysis, and we look at market clusters, okay? you could see, for all intents and purposes, how we went through that process of determining, okay, who chose. These are people who had responded to a special sale, and we divided them into 4 clusters, and we got a value that determined how strong those clusters were. And then we wanted to see, well, if we divided them into fifths, into 5 clusters, and we didn't get much of an effect. So 4 clusters, but we had 4 definitive groups of people out there. Okay, well, you got to have that database and access to it to get that done. And then on the service end of things, okay, and now this one thing down here, social networking data. You'll hear me say this 1,000 times, and I say this all the time to everybody. Social media are a business solution waiting for a problem. Okay, right now, social media are used, I think, maybe if at best 20% of their potential, if at best. And that's simply because it's such a new technology, and in many ways it's such a neutral technology that you can do almost anything with. Think about it for a moment. Okay, you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got I think Snapchat's another, Twitter, obviously. I mean, I could keep Pinterest. I could keep going on and on with all these social media platforms. And there are probably some that you use that I don't, because I'm an old person, and you don't. And you guys tend to find a place, then you run away once grandma shows up. That probably is a smart move. So you don't have to, like me, sit and look at every grandkid picture and recipe that's ever been invented. There's a point where I shut Facebook off because my mind just goes blank. Okay, but that being said, now call center data, okay, web self-service data, all of those feed into this process when we're trying to build customer intimacy, okay? And those levels, when the people who manufacture the automobile that we purchased, when they called our house, it impressed my wife. She would, wow, these people are to find out. Yeah, and I wasn't surprised because of the brand, and I figured, hey, these folks have got a high level brand, and they're selling, and they intend to make sure that I come back and buy another vehicle from them, and that I'm happy with the vehicle. Okay, and it's just amazing. One of the amazing things is, and I'm not going to tell you the brand because I don't want to be perceived as pushing a brand, but I'll tell you this. One of the amazing things was that they offer schools around the country, and to learn how to operate that vehicle in some pretty adverse conditions. They will take a person who will go with you and train you how to drive your vehicle, up the side, over boulders, through rivers, all this stuff, and you could pay them to do that, or you can put your name in a drawing. If your name is drawn, you get to spend 3 days with them and wherever they're at and go through the thing for free. Okay? So I said to my wife, I said, this is just unbelievable, okay, how they have really, really understood how to work this. Okay, now enough about that. Now we're still working through chapter 9. At the bottom of page 365, figure 9.8 shows you those customer relationship management software. They talk about cross-selling, and I know you understand that. They show you a figure there that shows you how those CRM systems support marketing: direct mail, telephone, web, email, social media. I can tell you that I don't respond to direct mail, and I get a bunch. And it's a shame because a lot of it is so nicely produced. Okay, it's beautiful, and I just throw it in the trash because they're not going to reach me that way. If they send me, the ones I feel sorry for are the ones that send me a magnet because I've got all these magnets. I just use them. Okay, but they might with a phone call. They might. The worst is the ones that go door to door. That is, I don't even respond to that anymore. And that used to be one of the primary ways that people made sales. but no more. Well, you could see over on page 364 that customer loyalty management process map, and I shared with you an experience I had where they're building my loyalty with a brand. Now over in 367 in chapter 9, and this is figure 910, is something that warms the cockles of my heart, and I'll see if I can find it over here and pull it up. And I think I can. There we are. Okay, this is the analytical CRM. Okay, you see, what are you talking about? Well, you'll notice I've spent a whole lot of time talking. If you've taken business problem analysis with me, if you've taken data administration with me, okay, if you're taking this with me, you hear me talking about KPIs, talking about business intelligence, talking about dashboards, precisely because of this analytical CRM. The customer data warehouse or analytic platform, okay, and how it's feed that's online analytical processing, then the data mining, other data analysis tools, because we have what we call these unstructured data. And in the management science class, if you've taken it with me or you are, we've been working with some unstructured data. We did the cluster analysis, then we took 2 sets of tweets, one about a company's product, the other that's not about, and we built a predictive model. And then the channels that feed all of that and those sources, okay? And this helps you here, to one extent or the other. About 95% of companies in the world, are going to say, I'm interested in this. And they'll use language maybe not as well defined, but they'll talk about churn rates, customer profiles, market segments. You can see how this builds. These 2 set profiles that build into segments. Okay, that's one thing. Churn rate is another factor, and then profitable customers. All right, there are some customers for whom the companies just simply understand that those customers won't be profitable. Let me give you an example. Okay, now I buy my shoes at a retailer. Okay, as I've told you before, I'm a big person, so I don't buy. I can't find the sizes I need in the stores, so I go to a website. Now I pay extra. I usually pay about $10 to $20 extra for a shoe that you'd pay. So if it's $100, okay, where for you it's 110, 120, so maybe 125. You say, well, that's not right. What's going on? It's pretty simple. Shoes are notorious because a lot of people will order 2 pair, okay, 2 different sizes, to see which one fits the best, and then they'll return one. So to stop you from doing that, okay, some sites will just simply charge you extra, okay, and so if you return something, they'll recoup it. And if you have two or more times where you've ordered something and then returned it, they may give you a call to talk with you, okay? And the folks I buy mine, I called them and I said, talk me through this, okay? And they were pretty good about it and gave me some tips on measuring all kinds of things. Look, somebody out there is going to come up with a way to hold if it doesn't exist already, to hold your phone over your foot, take a picture, and send it, and you'll have shoes perfectly tailored to your feet. It's only a matter of time and just a matter of the technology. It's probably out there to a certain extent now, and there are some places that sell shoes online that will walk you through the process of measuring your foot, the whole bit, so you get the right shoe. Why? Because they don't want the return. Once they've got the return, they got to do something with it. They either have to put it on sale and hope someone will buy it and not return it a second time, or they have to take it and recycle it. So this analytical CRM This is really, really, the authors have done a good job here of laying some of this out. Now, they do a great and even better job of talking about, okay, some of the challenges that are presented by this, all right? And then over on page 371, social CRM and business intelligence, talking about that. Now, some of the challenges that get caught up here are issues around legacy data. How do I use it? You say, what do you mean? Well, it's been a while now, but I had a customer, okay, who had their data stored, and their data was stored in a Fortran file. I don't think any of you have ever even heard of Fortran. It was a programming language. And I had to go and get my old textbooks, okay, fire up this old clunker of a machine and try to extract the data out so we could have legacy data. Nobody said, wow, we need to move this all over, okay? Now their choice was me, which I think I was maybe 75, 80% accurate. There was a vendor that said we can get you 100% accuracy and prove it to you, but it was going to cost them $20,000 or $30,000. And they said, we'll go with you. We'll take the cheap one. And so I did. You know, it was a church that did it for free. I didn't make any money from it. But boy, it was challenging because I had to really mess with some stuff that I forgot how difficult it was. So you have these legacy systems, okay? You have legacy machines. And I'll bet you, I counted one day, and between me and my wife, we've been buying my wife was a BlackBerry addict. I think they called it a crack addict or whatever it was, Blueberry. And she had that and loved that thing. And we still got it. And there's data in that thing, pictures and all kinds of things. I've never gone in and just harvested the stuff out of there. I bet between us, we have flip phones, we have Blackberries, we've got our first smartphones. We're on our third or fourth generation of smartphones. And I keep telling you, we have all these pictures and all this stuff. We uploaded it all to one cloud place and to another. So these are the kind of thing we're experiencing is not too much different than the kinds of experiences that companies do. And so as the chapter talks about, is working with these silos and pulling them all together. Well, that being said, I do want to alert you to some resources I've got over here for you, okay? And I always try to do that. And let me say this again, I don't give you quizzes over this stuff, okay? And there's a reason. I think you're intelligent enough and smart enough to say, if he's gone out and found me some additional resources, I'd be smart to go look at them. He's adding some value to my course beyond the book. He's giving me some other stuff to look at and think about. And it's usually very practical examples. And I have you some stuff here from PC Magazine, okay? And it's one of those publications that I haunt all the time, as well as CIO, and of course the New York Times and the LA Times, and then Harvard Business Review and MIT Sloan Management. So I got some publications that kind of go-to for me, and PC Magazine is another one of those. And they have some they do a great job of showing you the comparisons, comparing these systems in terms of their capabilities, what they can do, what they can't do. And so I would encourage you to take a look at it. And then they have one for the ERP software. I'll show that real quickly. Okay, as you can see, they do a beautiful job of laying out these products and then different features, okay? And if you want to see it, you can do that. So I encourage you to take a look at it. You may one of these days end up on a committee to purchase some technology, okay? And I think hopefully either in this course or in 1103, I'm thinking maybe 1103, we do a fairly decent job of coaching you in terms of that purchasing process. We probably don't, but just to kind of give you some background, when you talk about buying one of these systems, okay, you have to think about what we call the total cost of ownership. Now, your book talks about the total cost of ownership, and that means that TCO is, okay, the hardware and the software and the peopleware, training people. What does it cost to get people trained to use the system? Okay, and so that would be a total cost of ownership. And if you're talking about integrating a system over a 2 or 3 year period, then you're talking about a capital budget. You're talking about a capital budgeting project. And so I would encourage you to be astute enough to do that. And in fact, this is one of the best ways to get started, by walking through these key factors about these products. Okay, notice this is this is enterprise. We'll handle LIFO, we'll handle FIFO. Okay, if you buy an inventory system that can't handle first in, first out, you're dead in the water. You said, would someone be stupid enough to make one of those? People will make them, and effectively they're just not. So that would be one of these resources I'd like you to take a look at, and I would encourage you to do that. The other is the BESS CRM software. Again, this is from PC Magazine, and again, they'll give you some pretty unvarnished or pretty truthful assessment. Now, I also want to impress on you something. Okay, these systems, okay, at their heart have similar components. They just have some different kinds of dashboards for you to look at, some different kinds of looks. Okay, now there are some key functional differences, and you want to look at the check marks. Okay, but at their heart, okay, they're very much the same. And the question is, I think, which one is going to give you the best customer support, and which one will give you the easiest transition? Okay, and that is training people to use it. Okay, well, one final thing here, and then I'm going to call it a day. I started early, and I'll have some additional material for you to cover. This is the BESS inventory management. So they're also talking about supply chain management. Okay, and this is what they say. This is their recommendation. Now, you can go out and find other places that do reviews, and you'd want to do that. Okay, but from my experience, the two key factors are these. One, customer support. 3 o'clock in the morning, something goes wrong. Can you get someone on it to take care of it right then or by 6 the next morning? Okay. Number two, how easy is it to get people using it and getting them trained? Okay. And some companies will use what they call early adopters. These are people who are very comfortable with these technologies and will try different ones and say, well, this one's clunky, it's hard to see. And just to give you an example, okay, think about the difference between the look and the feel of Moodle when you've taken a class with me versus the look and the feel of Canvas. They look and feel differently. They navigate differently. And if we had this course in Blackboard, it would look even more different. Okay? And I've worked with learning management software for I don't know how long. And I can tell you they all have buried inside of their features is an approach or a way of doing things that's based on some type of philosophy of how you learn. Now, would I say Canvas is superior to Moodle? I think in terms of the look and the feel, it is. Moodle, I kind of felt like it was about 1995. You may have too. It's kind of ugly. Canvas is not bad. Blackboard is beautiful, and it has all kinds of features in it that you just couldn't, you could never even imagine all the features that it has, and you probably could never use all of them. Okay, so that's one of those things is you'll as you look at these, and again, it's that issue of total cost of ownership, and the key pieces are: what does it cost to train people to use this thing? What kind of customer support do I have? Well, folks, listen, I've gone on here for about an hour, and what I will do for Wednesday is we'll have another broadcast, and I'll have you some additional resources to look at, and of course, as always, I will find you some good TED Talks to take advantage of, and I really encourage you to do that. If I were to say we're having all these people in as guest speakers, okay, and if you come in our forums, like in our lectures, we have some really high quality people come in, and so there's some great value for you when you pop over for free, and you could look at a TED Talk and see what these people are thinking about. Okay, so I tried to set you up with some kind of guest lectures in 30 to 25, maybe to 40 minutes worth of time, so you could see some people who are some of the thought leaders in their field and what they're talking about that and what they're saying about that topic. Okay, again, thank you so much for your time, and all of you are MIS warriors who are online today, and keep it up. Don't forget, you've got these assignments due. One due on the 30th. Okay. Well, pardon me. I'm going to get ahead of myself. One due on the 27th, which is Friday. Well, all three are due Friday. I'll be looking forward to seeing your responses, and I will see all of you online on our virtual Wednesday. Thanks a bunch.